President Trump's broad tariff implementation, named Liberation Day, is only 2 days away. The president says this will help boost U.S. manufacturing while recouping some lost profits. And the Senate is also slated this week to move forward with a budget plan that is aligned with the House, which will become the vehicle for President Trump's policy agenda. Here to discuss this and other issues is Senator Roger Marshall, who serves on the Senate Committee on Finance and on the Budget Committee. As an OBGYN from Kansas, he is a member of the GOP Doctors Caucus and the Pro-Life Caucus. Senator Marshall, welcome back to Washington Watch. Always great to see you, my friend.
Tony, it's great to see you. It's been too long. My goodness, I think we're starting like day number 69, 70 of Trump, and it's been a whirlwind. I know you've been following everything that President Trump has accomplished here. Promises made, promises kept. I'm so proud of our efforts up here.
There's been a lot of good things that have occurred. A lot of eyes this week are on Wednesday, so-called Liberation Day, where there's going to be some tariffs rolled out. What should we expect?
Well, I think we're already seeing results of that more and more foreign entities are bringing their corporate manufacturing back to America. Softtech, a corporation from Japan, recently announced $1 trillion investment. It's going to add 100,000 jobs to America. So as they do more AI, they can set that up here. They have a choice. Do they do it here? Do they set up in Asia? They're afraid that they'll face tariffs if they don't do it here. We're seeing that in big pharma, the same thing as well. So we're already seeing it happen. And then I think, secondly, I just want to focus on national security, that President Trump is doing part of this. One reason is to get Canada and Mexico more engaged in stopping the flow of fentanyl, getting China to stop making its precursors. And then just overall, it's a good idea, I would think, to make sure that we're able to make steel and aluminum, things like that in this country, automobile parts. So we're going to see jobs coming back to America. President Trump knows what he's doing. We got this.
Let me ask you, talk about the manufacturing, and you talk about national security. As a doctor, back during COVID, we discussed this many times, but when we had China, who actually released the virus, but also had the manufacturing of personal protective equipment for medical providers, and then slow walking that, in fact, blocking some of that to the United States. Are we going to see some of that manufacturing, along with the pharmaceuticals, coming back to our shores?
Absolutely, Tony. And I want to add to the story there is that China actually sometime in early January, after knowing the virus was released, went out and bought up all the personal protective equipment all across the world. They're already making a lot of it. They bought up what they could as well. Then they got to mark it up as well. But really, for several years now, we've been trying to move those manufacturing processes back to America. And I'm sitting here thinking of Greenland, something else that's a little bit controversial. But we need those rare earth minerals to make a lot of these pharmaceuticals, to make IV solutions. It's the building blocks for so much that we use in medicine as well. But indeed, we're trying to move those building blocks back to America.
All right, Senator, let's talk budget. You're on those committees that deal with the budget. The Senate, I understand, is coming into kind of the same view as the House with one bill. There's going to be, I think, movement this week. It's critical because that's the vehicle by which most of the president's agenda is going to be advanced.
Yeah, think about this again. Promises made, promises kept. We're going to lower taxes is one, and slash spending. So lower taxes slash spending, that was part of what President Trump ran on. So that's what we need to do, is get this reconciliation bill across the finish line. Again, we can do this with 50 votes in the Senate. Very rarely can we do anything with 50 votes in the Senate, but we can slash taxes. We can eliminate taxes on tips, taxes on overtime, taxes on Social Security. That's saving money for hardworking Americans across the country. And then if we don't extend Trump's original tax cuts, that's going to be a tax increase on hardworking Americans as well. So this is our opportunity to lower taxes and slash spending.
What are you hearing from your Republican colleagues? Are they ready to move forward on this? Do you think you're going to have the votes to advance it?
I think so. Again, the magic number is 218 in the House and 50 on the Senate side. And I think the question is how much spending can we slash? How many taxes can we cut as well? And I think trying to make those two mesh and actually, and eventually balance the budget. I think that there are several balls in the air here right now, including the president wants us to work on the debt ceiling. So a lot of balls in the air. We got to bring these all together. And this is when President Trump's leadership is going to come in handy. I think Speaker Mike Johnson doing a great job. And over on this side, John Thune doing a great job as well. So it's going to take a lot of leadership, but I think we can get the job done.
All right, Dr. Marshall, I want to ask you a question for a physician. You delivered about 5,000 babies, as I recall, correct?
Yeah, that's right, Tony.
And those babies, did you assign them their gender at birth?
Yeah, Tony was actually, my people ask me what I miss most about obstetrics, and it was that moment the baby was born. And every baby that I delivered, as I cleaned the baby off and was stimulating it to cry, I would say a silent prayer for that baby. And then as soon as the baby started crying, that was the crowning event, right? So hand that baby to the mom and dad and say, it's a boy, it's a girl. And nobody ever gave me the baby back and said, hey, we don't want to assign a sex yet. I think it's just hard for me to imagine. Here I am 8 years later, and we're arguing about this. So I love what President Trump did on the first day in office, an executive order to say that if you make sperm, you're a boy. If you make oocytes, if you make eggs, you're a girl. And what we did this week was introduce legislation codifying, putting into law what President Trump did with that executive order. It's a boy, it's a girl. Can you imagine?
Well, it's important, and we've talked about this many times on this program since the Trump administration began. He's done a lot of good things by executive order, but those can be undone by the next administration if there is a change in administration. So codifying these are very important. You and Congresswoman Mary Miller introduced legislation. We wouldn't think this is necessary, but defining male and female. It's the Defining Male and Female Act, codifying what the president has done. But explain a little bit more why that's so important for federal purposes.
Yeah, to your point, no one's promised tomorrow. We don't know who the next president is going to be, but the Democrats aren't giving up on this issue. By the way, I don't think it's an 80-20 issue. I think it's a 90-10 issue, but nevertheless, the Democrats are just digging deeper and deeper in this hole. So I think it's important long-term that we codify this. And why it's important to me, and I think Christians everywhere, is that we protect the rights of those young ladies, we protect their safety, and we protect their dignity. I don't think we're spending near enough time talking about protecting the dignity of ladies, of girls. No one yet can look me in the eye and say, hey, I think it's perfectly fine to have a biological boy in the shower with these young ladies. So we need to protect their rights, their safety, and their dignity.
I mean, it is. It is a safety issue. It is a dignity issue. But at a much deeper level, it's a truth issue. I mean, it's reality. There are two genders, male and female. And when we deny that, what we're denying is broader truth. And that's a very dangerous place for a society to be.
Yeah, I think the pastor comes out and you, Tony, to talk about these subjects. But ultimately, I think this is a spiritual issue. And people are saying that we are God, that we get to determine whether this is a male or a female. So they're rejecting the perfectness of God. God knew us, made us perfectly. In the womb, we were made perfectly. So they want to reject what God has given us. I think it's a very slippery spiritual slope as well. Even just this week, my daughter sent me something that my grandson saw. Was basically grooming kids to be transgender. I had no idea it could get this bad. We just encourage everybody to pay really close attention to what your children, your grandchildren are looking at. And my daughter's watching it like a hawk, but somehow this got snuck in there.
Yes, such good advice. Parents need to be watching, guarding, protecting what their children see and hear. Senator Marshall, we're just about up against a break, but you're the first interview for this week, and I want to ask you this question. What are you looking for this week? What's on your radar screen, and what should our folks, our listeners, viewers, be praying about and thinking about as we start this week?
Well, I think probably Thursday night, we're going to be up all night working on the next step of this reconciliation process to help get President Trump's agenda across the finishing line, promises made, promises kept, to lower taxes and to slash spending. So I just, I lift President Trump up a prayer that we would do justice, that we would love mercy and walk humbly.
Roger, always great to see you. Thank you so much for joining us, and appreciate your fight for truth on Capitol Hill.
Thanks, Tony. Great to see you. Thanks for your prayers.